Hi, it's Steve and Joe from Freshagenda. And Steve, we're back. We missed the last GDT event. We're back with a bit of an update.
Yeah, we are back with some updates, some big data drops relevant to GDT 344 and, of course, the favourite chart of the week. I should point out that this is the last time we'll be doing this video in this look. We're going to be dressing this up next week in...
Next time.
It could be next week, in line with our ownership. So we're going to make our materials look a lot better in future, and I'm sure that's what people are looking forward to. So some updates. Let's start with European production with milk. And while milk's been just sort of sliding around just a little bit below zero, I think they're really starting to track down. You can see the big three producers in that region, the UK there, because it's an influence on how much product is required in the UK market. It's tracking pretty badly, but Germany's tipped right over as well now. And so we're wondering whether that's had an impact on the market. We'll talk about that shortly. But that is, as we've got into period where there's been a lot of rain and a lot of moisture, and that's probably just kept production down. There's other things going on, but then we had trade data out of Europe. Across the board, were these results good in terms of total trade?
It was fairly mixed trends for September for EU exports. We had S&P just in line really with last year. Cheese was also a little bit down, but a little bit better for whole milk powder and fats. So a little bit variable, but it will be interesting to see what happens with skim as that milk supply tightens.
And skim is on a fairly strong downward trajectory. This is a bizarre chart. Like, we haven't seen something like this for a while. I mean, we saw the reverse in 2015-16 when they lost cheese access to Russia, and here we've had, milk hasn't been drastically bad, but the big dip there in September and possibly worse in October, with what we just saw on the earlier chart. So, this is probably supporting prices because of the belief, the supply side's got a lot worse, but is the demand there? That's the challenge. And then New Zealand. Again, not bad across the board, except for all things to China almost.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, overall whole milk powder exports from New Zealand were up for the latest month of October, but still well down in China and Hong Kong. That's not really changing, is it?
No. The disaster goes flat across to the right. I mean, we are seeing increases in GDT trade. Obviously, that's seasonal, but yeah, this isn't changing at all.
Yeah, and it was down for skim as well in October on the import side. So yeah, not a lot of real positive signs leading into this week's GDT.
However, looking at, and we've got a GDT result there, which is that the expectation that skim milk powder was going to be stronger. Futures, as it turned out, some $300 to $400 over this result that we ended up with. But the European market was, up with those supply side worries. We would say a bit of expectation things are going to get a bit tighter, carrying that through at a stronger level. Whole milk prior to this was also moving up nicely. That's a 3-week view almost, but that's stronger. And we had a
pretty good pulse result.
Yeah, that was up. So the result was, net flat in terms of the index, but as we said in our tape, it's heavily weighed by what happens in whole milk powder because of the size of those volumes. But you couldn't call this a good result otherwise. Fats were neutral, skim was mostly negative, and cheese was tragic. But in the lead up, we had the US market mostly down. Cheese down in spot terms quite dramatically in the last few days, but Europe was going in the other direction with those supply side worries. So in the upshot of this, New Zealand medium heat skim, you can see the bath it took there. It's dropped 5% for the main, contract 2 product. Whole milk powder, we're just missing the index.
But it is that dark blue line.
It is that dark blue line, which is kind of a little better than last time in the forward months, but a week later. Skim milk powder had a disappointing pulse result, the fourth pulse result we saw last week, which fell, which was against the expectation. This event locked that in and went further. And really, I think our take on this would be the big difference we've seen in New Zealand versus European product. The European market tighter, so the ALA price actually rose.
Yes.
A healthy 6%. New Zealand product took a 5% hit. So our take is we're not seeing any change in that whole milk situation in China. The expectation that demand isn't going to pick up and is going to therefore keep a lot of milk, avoiding whole milk powder production.
Sure.
So there isn't going to be any stress on skim milk powder supply out of the Oceania region. We find there's a bit lying around in Australia as well, looking for a home. So that that's pulled apart to a discount for the New Zealand product against Europe by $280 a tonne out of this result, which is quite a flip from where we've been.
Absolutely.
So that weaker, that's been a trend. In fact, the last event was the unusual one, but not good for skim milk powder. And let's see how markets react to that in the next little while. Fats were mixed. Butter a bit weaker on Chinese demand being pretty good. Not many other takers, and IMF had solid support across the board. A small increase, but it was bought into most regions, including the Middle East and South America, which was interesting.
And again, it's that dark blue line.
Yeah. Cheese was awful. At times we've seen the decline in the US market pull down. We've seen that a few times, pull down the GDT result. So if you look at the history in that chart on the left, it's quite interesting. We have seen that, the US surplus in barrels and rocks at times trying to lead the GDT, and we think that's what's done it again. The chart doesn't pick up. This is an NDPSR series here, just showing in the US speak at dollars per pound. But the spot markets really fell away last week, early this week. So again, New Zealand having to avoid whole milk powder. There isn't going to be any challenge getting cheddar out of New Zealand. There's plenty lying around in Australia as well because of the surplus milk coming out of here at the moment. So that's helped, buyers sit back and go, well, we don't need to worry about that.
Sure. And again, very small volumes on GDT, so it doesn't
take much.
Does get knocked around a lot, just depending on who turns up.
Demand, your favourite charts here.
Wow. Gosh.
Don't tell much, really. Pretty similar to the last event. In fact, skim milk powder started stronger, but the result ended obviously a lot worse. But
yeah, because on those bar charts, they look well down. The demand looks well down everywhere. So
that's right.
Go figure.
So buying regions were pretty interesting. Whole milk powder, China stayed where it's been. It's pretty consistent the last few results and over most of the season. So it's averaging out pretty consistently. But they stepped back from skim milk powder.
Yeah.
And that's been a trend we've seen in general trade. That's a weaker market after early build-up. In whole milk powder, Southeast Asia they backed off as well, but were there in greater presence for skim milk powder, one of the highest percentages for some time. The interesting part when we look at this one, the Middle East buying, this is the highest Middle East tonnage for more than a decade.
Wow.
You've got to go back to 2012 before they actually bought more tons out of a single event. So taking advantage of, what are still attractive prices given the history of buying into that region, and also picking up a bit more AMF than what's been seen lately. So,
yeah, interesting. Just with everything going on in the Middle East, who knows? But certainly buying up big.
Yeah. Some of those relative values, the gap probably coming back a little bit. We can see the pincer there on that right-hand side of that left-hand chart, that whole had a discount against the synthetic value is just narrowed slightly, but AMF coming closer to butter.
Yep.
AMF going up 1%, butter coming down 1%. So let's pull that back. And finally, out of the GDT, it wasn't a good result for the New Zealand milk value. The spot value heading down towards $7. We've revised this morning our full year estimate based on these results and where futures sit. So it's coming back towards the mid-range of the Fonterra estimate now. The future's still a long way north.
Interesting to see whether they adjust this week. I'm sure they will.
Chart of the week, though.
Chart of the week. Well, I thought we've done a lot of discussion about the supply side, but the all-important demand side and China is still, people are still holding out hope that that they'll come back in a big way. But you can just see on the right-hand side of that chart in milk solids equivalent down for October. And you can just see some of the different trends there. This has been pretty strong, coming back a little bit in this latest month, but it's been fairly consistent in terms of Chinese buying. Just the whole milk situation remain very, very negative. So still that same situation, lots of internal stocks, demand still pretty subdued, not much requirement for imported product at this stage.
No, and look at infant formula. We hear, Chinese dairy companies talking about weak sales in infant formula, and that's not just their own product.
No.
It's obviously the imported volumes are still down a third. So, all right, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next with a really new look and feel to these presentations. So
Legends on everything.